Welcome to the Turkey Hunter Podcast with me, your host, Andy Galliano. In this podcast, I share with turkey hunters just like you how to have more turkeys on your hunting property and how to have more successful turkey hunts. I teach you how to do this with tips and interviews with turkey hunting pros, wildlife management tips, and entertaining turkey hunting stories. Tune in weekly as I share proven and simple strategies to help you have more success this turkey season. Make sure to head over to www.iamturkeyhunting.com to subscribe to receive free turkey hunting tips, tactics, strategies, and product reviews. Also, please visit and like my Facebook fan page. Go to Facebook and search I Am Turkey Hunting, and also feel free to post your turkey hunting photos from this past season and let us know where and when you killed your bird. For all of you Twitter users out there, please follow me on Twitter, where my handle is @TurkeyHitman, and I will be sure to follow you back. And now, for this week's show. Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of the Turkey Hunter Podcast. You are listening to episode number 143, Getting Permission to Turkey Hunt Private Land. And I am your host, and the guy who is the hero to his mother and cousin, because I pointed them to the website www.unclaimed.org. They clicked on the state that they live in, typed in their last name, and they found out that the state of Alabama was holding some of their money, and so they put in claims to get their money back from the state of Alabama. We don't know how much it is yet, but they're due a little bit of cash coming back to them. Unfortunately, my name was not on the list, and there was no cash coming back to me, but you guys may want to go on the website and check it out yourselves. Unclaimed.org. Click on the state you live in, and it should be pretty easy from there to search your name and see if the state that you live in is holding any money in your name. And if they are, shoot me an email and let me know. I'd love to know how much money you got back from the government. It's your money. They're just holding on to it. You may as well go get it. My email address, if you don't know it already, is andy@iamturkeyhunting.com. And right now, today, we are 238 days, 7 hours, 25 minutes, and 24 seconds away from opening day of spring turkey season in Alabama. And right now, I am still in planning mode. It is hot outside. The hottest temps of the season so far this week in central Alabama. I mean, it's smoking hot outside. Temps in the mid-90s, humidity levels in the upper 70s, low 80s, with feels-like temperatures of 105 to 110, makes it downright brutal outside. I can think about walking outside right now and start sweating. But with all this heat going on, I know that fall season is right around the corner. It will not be long before fall turkey season starts coming in some of these states around the country, and we need to be doing our planning, and not just planning for fall hunting, but we need to be planning for spring hunting as well. Now is the time for us to plan for next hunting season, whether that's getting a late summer planting of millet, or corn, or soybeans, or milo in the ground for the turkeys, or tinkering with shells and chokes and sights on our gun at the range to get ready for next season. We need to be taking advantage of this downtime from chasing turkeys to getting ready to chase turkeys. Part of our prep should be gaining some additional hunting spots, and getting permission to hunt private land is part of that process. If you'll recall my interviews with the pros at the NWTF convention in February, I asked every single one of the pros one question, the same question, to each pro that I interviewed. And one of those pros gave me an answer that I was not expecting to get. And he blew my mind when he said it, because it was spot on. That answer came from Cuz Strickland when I asked him, what's the one thing that took you from being kind of that beginner turkey hunter and having limited success to being a very good turkey hunter where you were consistently killing turkeys? His reply was getting access to better hunting land, land that was not as pressured as the Mississippi public land he had grown up hunting. Getting access to hunting land with turkeys that are not as pressured was the key to killing more turkeys. So he took what I've been telling you guys on this show one step further than the way I say it. I've been telling you that you can't kill turkeys on property where there are no turkeys. And he told us that we can kill more turkeys on property that has less pressured birds. And that is what I'm talking about today. Getting permission to hunt private land, but not just private land with turkeys on it. And that's huge. Because that is the first step to success in this process. That is the first step we need to make when we start looking to get access to hunting private land. We need to do our research online and by phone to find those areas, the counties in our state, that have the highest population of turkeys. And we do that by going to our state Game and Fish Department website and finding harvest rates for each individual county in our state. And now keep in mind that these stats are greatly affected by the number of hunters hunting in those counties as well as the population of the turkeys in those counties. So in knowing that, if we can find the name and phone number of the state turkey biologist in our state and call him or her and get input as to which counties they're seeing the highest hatch and recruitment rates in the state right now, that's going to be a big help too, because that is the future of our turkey population in these counties. And if we're going to put forth the effort of finding private land to hunt, then we want to make sure that that land is good to turkey hunt today and will be good to turkey hunt on next season also. Once we've identified the areas and counties that we want to find land in, then we want to identify specific parcels and the owners of those parcels. Now we do this by using Google Earth and GIS, which is Geographic Information System. So first we're going to use Google Earth. We're going to use it to identify areas within that county that we know has the high population of turkeys that look like they may hold turkeys. We're looking for a good mix of trees and fields, and ag fields are great, but even fallow fields and CRP fields can be good as well because those are often great nesting areas for hens. And when looking at Google Earth, we want to avoid areas that look like they have a great deal of 5 to maybe 15-year-old clear cut on them. Areas that don't have trees that are big enough for turkeys to roost in, and areas that have trees that are too big to make good wild turkey nesting habitat. And once a clear cut hits about 5 years, it really is not doing much good for wild turkeys. Now, I say that, and it actually can be good wild turkey habitat, but it has to be managed that way. And most of that land in the southeast that looks like that is not managed to be good wild turkey habitat. So once we found a few areas with a good mix of fields and trees with water, then we want to look at what is around it. Are those areas near a major highway or interstate where road noise will be a limiting factor in our success if we can gain access to hunt it? Years ago, when I first got into turkey hunting, I once got permission to hunt a piece of property in North Carolina that had a dirt racetrack on it where the owner would hold races 2 Friday nights per month. Now, the only times that I had the opportunity to hunt that property were Saturday mornings after the Friday night races. And imagine the activity on that property, Friday, race day, in preparing for the races, and Friday night during the races. If there was even a bird near the property after all of the race prep on Friday during the day, after all of that activity, that bird would have been scared to death from the noise of the race cars on Friday night. Needless to say, I saw turkey tracks on that property, but I never saw a turkey on that property. if we're going to spend the time and put forth the effort to secure private land to hunt, we want to know that we've got a good chance of harvesting turkeys on it. So that's why Google Earth is important. And once we've used Google Earth to find a few really good looking areas, then we want to identify the property owners in that area. And that is what we use GIS for. Now we should use the GIS for the specific counties that we've identified. So here's how we do that. We go to Google and we search the county that we've been researching land in and the letters GIS. So for example, if I want to find landowners in the Idaho Panhandle County of Nez Perce, then I'm going to search for Nez Perce County GIS. And one of the results that comes up when I do that search is a website for the county itself. And when I click on that link, the site asks me to agree to their terms of use to access their mapping services. Once I agree to their terms of use, the site takes me to their GIS maps and database where I can zoom into a particular part of the county where I've identified attractive looking habitat, and I can see the property lines for each particular parcel in that area of the county. And once I get to this point, I can select a tool from the menu bar that allows me to click on any of those parcels that are showing on the map and identify who owns that particular parcel in that area, how big that parcel is, and the owner's address where the property tax notice is mailed. Often, that is the individual owner's home address, but that is not always the case. If the owner of the property is a corporation, then that could be the corporate mailing address. And we may have to go to our state's Secretary of State website and find the name of the individual who registered the name of that corporation with the state. Now this works pretty well on mom and pop LLCs and S corporations, but if you find the owner of that parcel to be a larger corporation, a lot like what we see here in the Southeast where paper and timber companies own very large tracts of land, then what we need to do is we need to turn to that company's website for information on leasing that land. Or some companies even offer the opportunity to pay a trespass fee, and certain places even offer the opportunity to obtain a day pass for hunting that property as well. So that's where looking at the website will really come in handy to educate us on what the particular company requires of us to have access on their properties. So if we find the owner to be a larger corporation who does not allow hunting on their lands, then I'm going to venture out and say that we may be better served moving on in our search to find some private landowners. But if the corporation does lease the land and it is currently leased, then we should ask the company for the name and number of the individual who holds the lease to that property, and call that person and ask that person if he or she runs a hunting club on that property or just leases it for themselves for their own private use. If it's a hunting club, then we can ask to see the property, ask them the amount of dues, ask them for a copy of the rules, and if we can look at the property. Get eyes on trees and boots on dirt and look at the property. From there, if we like what we see, then we can join the hunting club. But we need to be sure that we can turkey hunt it, because some hunting clubs, and especially in the Southeast we see this a good bit, they do not allow turkey hunting, either because the landowner retains the turkey rights or certain club members buy all of the turkey rights, which is pretty selfish, I know, but we turkey hunters can be pretty selfish. So we need to be sure that we have the opportunity to turkey hunt that property if we join the club. Now, if the person who has that property leased uses the property themselves, just on a personal basis, then we can ask if they would entertain a meeting with us to discuss having us help with the cost of the land and planting and doing work days in exchange for turkey hunting rights. Okay, so Now, what if the landowner is an individual or a group of individuals? Well, if the landowner is a group of individuals, of course, the landowner wouldn't be a landowner, they would be landowners. What we can do is typically find the person who's in charge of that land by going to the tax collector's office for that county where the property is located. And typically, the tax notice will be mailed to one person only for that property. Most of the time, that's the person who's kind of taken charge of that property. So imagine a piece of property that's been in a family for a long period of time, and mom and dad pass away. There are 4 children, and the land is left to all 4 children in one parcel, and it has not been divided. Typically, one of those 4 children is going to be in charge of that land. Maybe it's the executor or executrix of the estate, but the tax notice usually will go to that one person, and that's who we need to try to contact at that point. So once we know the person and the property address of that person that the property tax notice goes to, then we can jump into action. Now, from here, we're going to get a lot of differing opinions about what approach is the best approach. I am going to speak more for what I know, and that is land in the southeast. And I know a little bit about gaining access to turkey hunt land in the Midwest. Not much, but a little bit. And here's my experience and my opinion. And I do believe that this varies a lot depending on what part of the country we're in. If we go to the Northeast, I don't think that this is the best strategy to take, but I believe that a face-to-face meeting with a landowner is 100 times more effective than a letter or a phone call asking for permission to hunt. The reason I say that is because, in my experience, it is so much easier to tell someone no over the phone or in writing than it is face-to-face. Especially when you're in an area like the Southeast where I think to a fault, most of us are just so nice that we'll lie to you to not say no. And now I'm going to carry this area of disagreement one step further, because when I say that I think a face-to-face meeting with the landowner is better, it gives us a better opportunity to get a yes, the question comes up of how do we expect to get a face-to-face meeting with a landowner if we don't call first to set up a meeting? And here's where it gets a little bit hairy, but oftentimes it takes patience, if at all possible, do a drop-in. And that is going to be where the big controversy comes with a lot of people when they hear me say that. Because some people's objection to a drop-in to ask permission to turkey hunt is that, well, you don't want someone just to drop in on you at your house. And that's kind of true. If someone comes knocking on my door at 6 o'clock in the evening, because of where I live in the suburbs in Birmingham, it is either one of my neighbors or someone trying to sell me something or ask me to vote for someone. But I don't believe that's the way it is in the country. So if we're traveling in the country and we go and knock on someone's door, what runs through the homeowner's mind at that point in time is that most likely someone needs some help. There just aren't a lot of door-to-door salesmen, and there just aren't a lot of political candidates who are out knocking on doors in the country where there's a house every 2 or 3 miles. Again, I feel like that's probably different in the Northeast, where there are not these huge tracts of land that are owned by one landowner, where most of your landowners out there own smaller tracts, anywhere from 40 to a couple hundred acres. And those landowners may be better approached initially by sending a letter or by making a phone call requesting the opportunity to talk to them about hunting their land. So I'm going the route of a drop-in, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So for a drop-in to be successful, we really need to be cognizant of a few things. First of all, we need to keep in mind the season that we're dropping in. What I mean by this is if the landowner is a farmer who lives on the property, then we don't want to really drop in on that farmer during planting or harvesting time. Most likely at that point, we're going to interrupt the landowner or the farmer when he or she has money making on his mind, and we don't want to start off on the wrong foot. Another thing that we need to be cognizant of is our dress. So I'm against going and knocking on someone's door wearing camouflage and carrying a gun in my hands with my rubber boots on. It kind of gives the wrong impression to the landowner, like maybe you're thinking that you're going to go out and hunt right away and that they owe you the opportunity to go hunt. That's not the impression that we want to give that landowner. So I think we need to dress in our clean street clothes and not necessarily in our Sunday go-to-meeting clothes, but maybe something nice enough to wear on a golf course. You know, kind of like dinner with the wife at Applebee's nice. I definitely do not recommend that we show up in camo. I also don't recommend that we show up in our dirty work clothes, just like I recommend we don't show up in camo, because we never get a second chance to make a first impression. I don't even remember what commercial that's from, but I like it. And one other thing that we need to think about is not only our dress, but how our vehicle is dressed as well. Our vehicle doesn't have to be spit shined, but I think that showing up to someone's house to ask them permission to hunt with a pickup truck that's absolutely covered in mud might give the wrong impression of what we're trying to do on that landowner's property. We're not asking permission to go mudding, we're asking permission for hunting. And we don't want to let them think that we're going to be tearing up their roads or their fields with our vehicle. Okay, one other thing that we need to think about before we go and drop in on someone is that, okay, so that does it for the free portion of today's episode of the Turkey Hunter Podcast, but there's more to this show. But there is more to this episode, and if you want to hear the rest of this episode, then you will want to subscribe to the show. Then you will want to become a member of, then you will want to subscribe to the premium content of the Turkey Hunter Podcast. And here's how you do it. Text the word Turkey Hunter. Make it one word, no spaces, Turkey Hunter. You're going to text that to the number 44222 and follow the directions from there. It's very easy to subscribe to the premium content. It costs a whopping $12 a year, of which one of those dollars is going to go to the NWTF. And your subscription to the premium content will ensure that you get access to the premium content for the next 52 weeks, as well as the premium content that we've done in the past. So you likely are going to miss out on a great deal of info if you don't subscribe to the premium content. Don't delay. Do it now. Get it while it's hot. So that's all that I've got for you. So like I said, that's all that I've got for you guys. But before I cut you loose, I'm going to ask you for a favor. And my favor is this. If you learned anything from this week's episode, if you would please forward, like, and share the episode on social media, on Facebook and Twitter. That would be a huge help to the show. And I would be very appreciative of that. All right, it's time for me to cut you loose. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. I know that you have choices, and I appreciate you spending your time with us. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Goodbye. Thanks for tuning in. You were just listening to the Turkey Hunter Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please go on over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review. And make sure to head over to www.iamturkeyhunting.com to subscribe for free turkey hunting tips, tactics, strategies, and product reviews to help you have a more successful turkey season. And stay tuned for upcoming episodes on hunting afternoon birds, how to film your hunt, and the breeding cycle of hens, as well as some guest interviews. Thanks again for listening. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you sharing some of it with us. See you next week.